Ruchim Aboim, to the assembly that we're gathering today, talmidim over here, Kitos, which is joined in with all the yeshivas and elementaries. We're today here to discuss the special sicha where the Rebbe gave over and said the following words: Ich hab getan, als was ich hab gekentan, tut als was ihr kennt. That's a sicha that was said Chof Ches Nissan, and in honor of that, to be able to give us the proper koiches to infuse us, we have a special guest to speak to us and give us the tut als was ihr kennt, to do whatever we can. The Huf-Bet Gadol. We have Rabbi Levi Garelik, Rabbi of the European Synagogue of Brussels, that's here to join us today in this honor. The Chavod, Rabbi Garelik.
Thank you, Rabbi Wilhelm, and of course, thank you all the boys who are here in Ale Menachem in New York, and of course, all the Chassidische Bachrim and all Bachrim who are watching this all over the world. Today is Chof Ches Nissan, which is one of the days that a revolution happened on this day. This is the famous time, as Rabbi Wilhelm just mentioned now, when the Rebbe said the famous words, Tut als was ihr kennt. Now, the Rebbe said another whole bunch of words there, but we're not going to go through them now because we won't have enough time for that. But I would like to discuss a little more what this revolution means and what especially for Bachir. But I will start with the following. There's one of the famous stories in Lubavitch, which I had the schus of hearing from my father-in-law. My father-in-law was one of the Rebbe's secretaries. That there was one time a couple, of course we heard hundreds and thousands of stories of parents who, after a few years of marriage, they had no children. Rebbe, a bracha. There was a couple, they were not Lubavitcher Chassidim. And like many other cases, unfortunately, they had no children. 10 years went by and they still had no children. Every kid here, I'm sure you all learned Pasha Lechacha, right? You learned Pasha Lechacha? What does it say in Pasha Lechacha? That if you don't have children for 10 years, go and marry someone else because a person is supposed to have children. And that's also something which is brought down in Sfarim. Of course, we don't necessarily have to do that. We always daven to the Eibishter that we should have children. Anyways, but there was this couple and they had no children. So after 10 years, they went to the Rav and they asked the Rav, what should we do? And the Rav says, of course, you have to get divorced. The husband was ready to get divorced. The wife, she said she'd rather wait another little bit. She was crying. She doesn't want to get divorced. And the husband said, if this is the halacha, this is what we're going to do. Some reason, they had a friend who was a Lubavitcher Chassid, and he told them that the Rebbe gives a lot of brachas to people, especially people who have no children. Go to the Rebbe and ask for a bracha. So reluctantly, they went to the Rebbe. They told the Rebbe the whole story. And the Rebbe said they should not get divorced because the Rebbe will give them children. Okay. Went by another year or maybe even 2 years, and they still had no children. So the husband told the wife, that's it. He went to the Rav, and he told the Rav the whole story. So the Rav says, I don't understand. I told you already 2 years ago to get divorced. Why did you wait so long? So he said, because, we went to the Rebbe gave a bracha, and the Rav said, the Rebbe is a Rebbe, but halacha is halacha. And therefore, because the halacha says you have to get divorced, there's no problem for you to get divorced and everything will be fine. So the husband started pushing the wife for a divorce. She didn't want, she was crying, but she had no choice, and they got divorced. Went by a month, and the halacha is that after a divorce, a lady is not allowed to get married for a few months just to make sure that she is not pregnant. Amu beres. Helf the Rebishter, mitamol she felt that she is Amu beres after they got divorced. So now, what do you do in such a case? So there is a concept which is called machazir grushasei, that you marry the lady who you divorced, and it's also a mitzvah according to some. So beautiful. They were ready to get married again, and this way they're going to put up a family. But there was a problem. The problem was that the husband was a kohen. And that kohen is not allowed to marry a lady who is divorced. So till now, the wife was crying. Now they're both crying, the husband and the wife. They don't know what to do. So they came to the Rav and they said, we have a massive problem. We got divorced and now she is pregnant and we want to get remarried. But he's a kohen. What do we do? She's crying. The husband is crying. And now the Rav is crying. Why? Because he told them the wrong thing. Yeah, of course he told them the halacha. But he didn't have enough in his brain to be able to hold on to such a story now. What do you do now? So they went back to their Lubavitcher friend. And the friend said, just go to the Rebbe. If there is any solution, the Rebbe will have it. They came to the Rebbe, to make a long story short. And the husband told the Rebbe the whole story, and he was ashamed. Then he wanted to ask for mechila, and he says, Rebbe, what do I do? Now, I'm sure you've seen many times the videos how the people go by the Rebbe for dollars. You go, the Rebbe talks for a half a minute, and you go and get right there. There's no time, right? So he tells the Rebbe the whole thing. The Rebbe just listens, and the Rebbe says, Geh red mit dein Mame. Go and talk to your mother about this. Partik. And then he walks off. He goes out and he thinks for a moment. He says, wait a minute. My mother doesn't know halacha. My mama is an alta Bible. What does she know about halacha? There's no point in me going to my mother. So he wanted to go back to ask the Rebbe, why should he go to his mother if his mother doesn't know halacha? But, as we all know, in Lubavitch, there's no such thing as going back to the Rebbe. By all the Rabbein, this was known. Once the Rebbe says something, that's it. That's the end. So he didn't know what to do. So the shliach told him, let's go and talk to your mother. Very simple. Make a long story short, they came to the mother and they told her the whole story. The mother listens to the story and he says, okay, so what do you want from me? I don't know any halacha. So they were all sitting there, didn't know what to do. So the shliach tells the lady, Herr Zachai, listen, the Rebbe sent us to you. You have the answer. She sat for a few minutes, and all of a sudden she started crying, and she told her son, I am sorry I never told you this, but I have a secret for you, and that is that you are adopted. You're not our son. And if he's not her son, then he's not a kohen. If he's not a kohen, then we have no problem. They could get remarried. Now comes the question, how did the Rebbe know this? Did the Rebbe ask this guy, what's your name? Did he ask him, what's your address? Did he ask him, who is his mother? Who is his father? The Rebbe didn't ask any questions. The Rebbe just looked at him, and the Rebbe said, a problem that the biggest Rabbanim wouldn't know how to deal with it, right? The Rebbe comes and says, get to the mama, done. How did the Rebbe do that? And the answer is very, very simple. Do you all have a heart? Sure. Put your hand here, and you'll hear the heart, correct? Can you see the heart? Can you see it? That's a very different story. If you have chas v'sholem, if somebody has a problem with the heart, what does he do? He goes to the doctor. The doctor doesn't look with his eyes. The doctor takes a stethoscope, he puts it on the person, and then he could see or hear a little better what's happening with the heart, correct? But then there are many times that the doctor, even with the stethoscope, he still doesn't hear enough. And he wants to see exactly what's happening inside. What does he have to do then? He takes the person and he sends him to a hospital, to a special place, that have a big machine, which is called an X-ray. You know what an X-ray machine is, right? I'm sure you've heard about it. Hopefully you'll never have to use one, but there is a concept which is called an X-ray machine. And sometimes they really put you on an MRI where they lay you down like in a little box and you have to stand like this for 15 minutes. You should never have to do that. The Rebbe says always it, yeah? But it has to be done. What does this machine do? This machine has special eyes, special lenses. They could see inside everything that's happening in the body. They could see the heart. They could see the bones. They could see till the details. Why? Because that's what an X-ray means, that it goes even beyond what the eye could see. It goes behind the wall. This is what the concept of an X-ray machine. The Rebbe has eyes, and those eyes are even deeper than an X-ray machine. Because the Rebbe doesn't only see the person, the Rebbe also sees the neshama. Once you could see the neshama of a person, you don't need his address, you don't need his phone number, you don't need to know who his mother is, his father, anything. Because in the neshama are all the secrets of this person from the moment he was born until Mashiach comes, and we're going to have Tchias HaMesim. In the neshama there is everything. And that's why the Rebbe is the only one that has that power to be able to have these X-ray to see these neshamas. Why? Because the Torah also has a guf and a neshama. There's the Torah that we learn, Bereshis bara Elokim, Vayomer Hashem el Avram lech lecha, a story with Avram, with Yitzchak, with Sarah, with Hagar, with Yosef, with the brothers, right? This is all the guf, what we see. But then the Torah also has a neshama, which is pnimius HaTorah. Most of you are either became bar mitzvah or becoming a bar mitzvah, right? What do you do at the bar mitzvah? At the bar mitzvah, you say two speeches, right? One is called a pilpul, which all the boys say all over the world. But a chassidische barcher, he also says a maimer. What does it discuss in the maimer? You remember the shisha midas elyonos? Yeah? In the pilpul, you talk about the tefillin. Have you ever seen a pair of tefillin? Sure. In the Maimon, you talk about the Shisha Midas Elyonis. Have you ever seen them? Did anybody ever see the Shisha Midas Elyonis? No. Most people don't even know exactly what they are. That's okay. By the Bar Mitzvah, even if you don't know exactly what they are, it's still fine. But at least you know that there's something called Pnimius HaTorah, the secrets of Torah, and that is what we stand for. That we learn also Pnimius HaTorah, not only Nigla the Torah. Therefore, because the Rebbe is the one that represents Chassidus in the world, Pnimius HaTorah. Therefore, the Rebbe gave to the Rebbe these special powers that he should be able to everything that he sees in the world, whether it's a person, whether it's a house, whether it's whatever it may be. The Rebbe sees not only the guf, but he also sees the neshama, and that's what happened with this couple over here. When the Rebbe saw this man, he didn't see just who he is. He saw his whole history. And according to Torah, Pnimius, the Rebbe saw that this person is not a Kohen. So the Rebbe couldn't just, the Rebbe doesn't like to make mufsim straight like that and tell him, go to your mother because you're adopted. No. Everything has to come down in Teva. It has to come down in nature. So therefore the Rebbe said, go to your mother. And finally his mother told him the secret. That's what happened on Chof Ches Nissan. Because just like a person has a guf and a neshama, just like the Torah has a guf and a neshama, the whole world has a guf and a neshama. The guf is what we see out there. Wilde Welt. You go out there, my gosh, was tutzach dort. The people are killing themselves, people are robbing, people are this, people are that. Is this the world that the Rebbe had in mind? Is this the world that the Rebbe created? Of course, everything comes from the Rebbe, but that's not the Tachlis HaKavana why the Rebbe created this world. The Rebbe created this world because the Rebbe is looking for a house, as all Chassidish kids know. Nis'ave HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Rebbe wanted Li Yisla Yisbarech Dira B'Tachtonim. The Rebbe wants to have a house here in this world. So this house, when is it going to look at the Rebbe's house? Came the Rebbe on Chof Ches Nissan. And you know what the Rebbe said? Now is the time when the world looks already like the Rebbe's house. We just have to finish another few little buttons there, and it's going to be finished. I would like to give you a very, very simple example of where we see that this is almost finished in a very practical sense. When I was your age, a little younger actually, I was 11, 10 and a half, 11. I grew up in Milan, Italy. Milan, Italy at that time, today people go back and forth every day, so this is garnished. Today you could go to Australia every week, it's garnished. Those days, people didn't travel like that. Not only that, today you were growing up on this just press a button, and I could see my father in Italy, and I could talk to him. All's good and fine. When I came to yeshiva, I'm not that old, but when I came to yeshiva from Italy, I was able to speak to my parents on the phone for 5 minutes a month. Once a month for 5 minutes. You know why? It was too expensive. Cost too much money to call from New York to Italy. No, who calls from New York to Italy? Only the people, the companies. And not only that, when the Rebbe verbringt those days, finally, it took years. I remember on Lag Boimer, when I was a kid, Lag Boimer, we listened to a recording of a verbringen of Yud Shvat of last year. Could you imagine? This is what it was. The connection just wasn't there. We didn't know every minute what's happening in 770. It took months until we got something. Take, for example, Lekach. The Rebbe gives Lekach Erev Yom Kippur. Do you know when I ate the Rebbe's Lekach of Erev Yom Kippur? Somebody, it was a Rebbe Harlik here in New York, used to ask the Rebbe Lekach for my father. And then he would take it, put it in a little box, and put stamps on it. He didn't send it airmail, too much money. He would send it by boat. When we had the Fabrengen for Yutes Kislev, that's when we gave out the brekelach of the Lekach of Erev Yom Kippur. And the matzah of Erev Pesach, you know when we had matzah? Lag Boimer. Lag Boimer is when, what was the great thing we used to get together Lag Boimer? We're going to have the Rebbe's matzah. Okay? This is what it was those days. Even more. At least the telephone was around. Do you know that when a child, or a grown-up even, a grown-up wanted to learn Torah, but he didn't have a school in his city, or he didn't have the possibility, that's it. No eitzah. Finally, the telephone came, so now people were able to call to other places and use the telephone and then speak to somebody and learn something. But again, you need somebody else who is available. And this was very, very hard. Today, if somebody wants to learn, all you have to do is, chas v'shalom, not by yourselves. Because the internet, on the one hand, it is something unbelievable. On the one hand, you could have over there shiurim and Torah, all kinds of beautiful things. On the other hand, until Mashiach comes, all the good things also have another side. Because there's another side, so therefore, nobody up to age 20 has the right to even touch it, unless you have a special shmirah and you have reshus, etc., and only to see, if you want to see the Rebbe Sichos or Maimorim or things that have to do with Tzivus Hashem, etc. But what's the good side of it? There's a pasuk in Yeshaya, a pasuk that all of you know because we all learn Rambam. What's the last pasuk in the Rambam? That there's going to be a time very, very soon when Umala ha'aretz deya es Hashem kamayim layom mechasim. What does that mean? The whole world will be filled with the knowledge of the Eibishter, just like the sea, the water covers the sea, right? Is there such a thing, that the whole world will be filled with knowledge of the Eibishter? Yes. Today, anybody could walk wherever he is, whether it's in his bedroom, on a plane, anywhere, and he wants to learn Kitos, all he has to do is press a button right there. And what happens if he wants to hear a shir? A shir in the deep Maimorim of Tofresh Samach Vav or Ayin Beis from Rabbi Levi Garelik. Until a few years ago, he had to come to 770 and be able to find the right time and the right place when there's a shir. Today, no. All I have to do is press a few buttons, and I could hear a shir in Tofresh Ayin Beis when I'm sitting on a plane. There's nothing that beats it. Never was there such a thing in history. In 3,000 years, 3,500 years since Moshe Rabbeinu gave the Torah, there was never such a thing in history that every single person, a Chinese guy in China, a guy in Siberia, wherever, they could sit and learn Torah day and night. They have the shiurim. They have everything that they need. They just have to have enough brains to go just use the correct part and not chas v'shalom the rest. So what Yeshaya said over 2,000 years ago, Yeshaya Navi, today is a reality. And this is what the Rebbe spoke on Chof Ches Nissan. The Rebbe said that now is the time when we have to start opening our eyes and we have to see what is going on in the world. That the world, yes, the people, not necessarily did they change. They still have we're not going to talk about what people do. But the world now is at a place where the concept of Torah is available and accessible to every single person in the world. You live here in Crown Heights, or the other ones who are Baruch Hashem watching, you're sitting in LA, you're in other places. Yeah, you have a school. What do the kids do that they have no school in their place? So today there's something called online school. What's online school? They go downstairs, they open up a plastic box, and they have a class. If I was around your times, I wouldn't have to leave from Italy. I could have stayed home like all other kids and not have to be homesick and not have to go through all of that. Because today we are in a time that Umala ha'aretz deus Hashem kamam layam chasim. Now came Chof Ches Nissan, and the Rebbe added a very, very important point. And that's the point that the boys, the Bachrim, have to remember. And that is as follows. As soon as the Rebbe said those words, tu talts was ihr kennt, I want to tell you, we went on a high because we never heard from the Rebbe such a thing. Tu talts was ihr kennt. We never heard such words from the Rebbe. And everybody was thinking, what should we do? We got to take over the world. We have to, who knows what. After about 2 weeks that everybody was trying to do all kinds of things, something very interesting happened. I'm sure you all know what this is, right? The Dvar Malchus. Now, this what I'm holding here is not the Dvar Malchus that you get every week. This is the grandfather. When it started, the way that Dvar Malchus started was that, I'm sure you all know what Likutei Sichos is, right? The Rebbe Sichos. Now, Likutei Sichos used to come out every single week, used to come out of Sicha, and then they bound them all together in the Likutei Sichos. Now, until the Rebbe, anybody who wrote Torah, let's say the Chassam Sofer wrote Shuvas, the Rabbi Kiva Iger, the Rabbi Yehuda, everybody, they all wrote in Nigla the Torah. They took a shaila and discussed it. If you went to the Arizal wrote Primius Torah. But the one person in one speech should start off with Arashi and Pshuta Shel Mikra, and then he should go to the Gemara, then he should go to the Halacha, then he should go to the Zoyar, and then he should go to Maisa Bepoil. The Kol HaTorah Kula in one speech didn't exist. So most of the people out there who learn in yeshivas are not used to this language. So they used to pick up the Sikha, they didn't understand what to do with it. So there's a guy in Eretz Yisrael who, what did he do? He started taking the Sikha and he printed it differently. He called it Dvar Malchus. He printed the Sikha inside, and then he added a letter from the Rebbe and a story from somewhere, and this is what he gave out in the shul. So the people who weren't used to learning Likutei Sichos, at least they picked it up. Some read the story, and some read the letter, and then, as they're already holding it, so they already looked at the Sikha. And slowly but surely, people started learning Likutei Sichos much more because it was given in a very much simple form. When the Rebbe said, Tu talts was ihr kennt, the following Shabbos, the Rebbe said this secret. And the secret is that when you go on Mivtzoim, what do? Take a pair of tefillin, you put on somebody, done, the mitzvah is done. You have to explain to him what tefillin is? No. Does he know what's in the tefillin? No. Do you know what's in the tefillin? Why is the order of Rashi ben Tam different? We don't necessarily know all these things. But in order to do the mitzvah, that's enough. Just to put on tefillin. Of course, we should learn everything else. But as far as mekayim the mitzvah, that's done. When they go to the street, when the ladies go in the street with a candle, and they get a lady to light Shabbos candles, once they light the Shabbos candle, the mitzvah is done. When it comes to Mashiach, said the Rebbe, no. Until our generation, people either they knew what Mashiach is, they didn't know what Mashiach is, they believed that something is coming, who, when, what, nicht negay. That's how Yiddishkeit always looked at the concept. No one knows when it's going to happen. No one knows how it's going to happen. Said the Rebbe, Chof Ches Nissan, Ad Kan. That's it. And 2 weeks later, this guy in Israel, what he did was, since the Rebbe said that you have to learn the subject of Mashiach in order to understand it, you have to learn in Moshiach and Geulah Mashiach. So what did he do? Where is the place in Torah that discusses the concept of Mashiach? The only one who explains it clearly in a halachic way is the Rambam. And the Rambam has 2 prakim, Perek Yud Aleph and Perek Yud Beis of Hilchos Malachim. So what did he do? He printed this booklet, and in the back, he has the 2 prakim of the Rambam, right? The 2 prakim of the Rambam. Afterwards, he even added another version of the Rambam, an old print, because I don't know if you know, there's something called the censorships that they used to take out things from Torah because it's against the Goyim, etc. Do you know that there's a whole section in the Rambam Hilchos Mashiach that discusses Yoshke and Muhammad and all those kind of things, right? Which is not in our Rambam. So therefore, he printed the whole thing, so we have the whole story. And in front of it, he printed 4 siches. The first 2 siches discuss the first Perek, and the next 2 siches discuss the last Perek. And therefore, boys, the only one who really understands what's the concept of Mashiach is someone who learns this booklet. When the Rebbe received it, it was on the day of his brother's yahrzeit, I believe, or maybe 2 days later. The Rebbe received it, was before Mincha. The Rebbe went into the elevator to go downstairs to Mincha. You know, the last few years, the Rebbe used to go downstairs with the elevator in 770. And the Rebbe gave this to Rabbi Groner. And he said, that's what I heard at least at the time, that they should print 10,000 of these booklets, 10,000, and the Rebbe is going to distribute it that night after Ma'ariv. Okay? When the Rebbe used to say something, it had to be done now, and now means now. To make a long story short, I'm sure you've seen videos of the Rebbe giving out Tanyas, Kuntreisim, etc. All those Tanyas and Kuntreisim that the Rebbe gave out, those booklets, no one knew beforehand that the Rebbe is going to give it out. Only the 3-4 people that were in charge of printing it, they are the ones that knew it. But they had to keep it a secret. Those days, there was no WhatsApp. The whole world was a secret. If you didn't say it to anybody, nobody knew. So, no one ever knew. This was the exception. When that Rebbe came down to Mincha then, the Rebbe spoke a Sikha, and the Rebbe said that in Mirz Hashem tonight, after Ma'ariv, we will distribute a Maimer for Rabbi Seinu Nesienu. That was the Lashon of the Rebbe. Something for Rabbi Seinu Nesienu from our Rebbes. Came after Ma'ariv, and the Rebbe gave out 9,500 of these booklets to men, women, and children. And this booklet, it says very, very clearly that the Rebbe said that the derech hayeshara, the correct way, lezares as bias Mashiach tzidkenu bepoyel mamish, to hasten the coming of Mashiach bepoyel mamish. How is that? Hu al yedei, through shekol echad ve'echad, everyone, anoshim, nashim, betaf, men, women, and children. Yosef belimud HaTorah bichlal, will add in limud HaTorah, that alone will hasten Mashiach. Ubimyuchad binyane Geulah Mashiach, and especially in Inyane Mashiach, as they are explained in Torah Shebal Peh, in the Gemara, and in Rambam, etc. And this is what the Rebbe wanted to accomplish on Chof Ches Nissan. Until Chof Ches Nissan, Mashiach is something in the sky. We have no idea what it is. We have no idea who it is, when it is, etc. Comes Chof Ches Nissan. Now starts the time when the whole world should learn the concept of Mashiach. And therefore, the Rebbe gave out this Dvar Malchus. So, being that you boys are in yeshiva, and you have only one job, and that is the concept of Limud HaTorah, you have to make sure that just like when you come to Hilchas Shabbos, just like when you come to those halachas, everybody knows what Shabbos is. Everybody knows what you're not allowed to do, what you are allowed to do. Because Shabbos is a household word, because everybody goes through Shabbos. The Rebbe wants that the concept of Moshiach should be also in the mouth of everyone. That we learn it, we understand it, and we are proud. And I'll just finish off that one time, the Rebbe said by one of the early Fabrengens, that one time the Rebbe was in the train, in the subway in New York, and the Rebbe heard two people talking, and one told the other that the next stop is Kingston Avenue. It's the stop of the Lubavitchers. So the other guy asked him, where does the Lubavitchers? Who are the Lubavitchers? This is back in the 50s, in the 40s. So the other guy answered him, this is the story that Rebbe said by the Fabrengen. He answered him, das ist die Jiden, was warten auf Mashiach. Das ist die Jiden, was warten auf Mashiach. These are the Jews who are waiting for Mashiach. Boys, whether you're here or out there, on your forehead, there's a tattoo. You don't need the tattoo garbage that the people have out there. You have a Chassidish tattoo right here on your forehead that says, I am a Chassid of the Rebbe. I am someone who learns the Inyanim Mashiach. I am someone who knows the halachas of Mashiach. And I am a proud Lubavitcher Chassid who is waiting any given moment for Mashiach. So guys, get to work. And Emir Hashem, today we will be in the Beis Hamikdash Ashlishi with Mashiach, with all the Yidden. And the Rebbe will say, boys, you did an excellent job. Hatzlacha Rabba.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Garelik, with their koiches. And from them, we should be Zoicha Taka to the Kiyum Kimal as Deus Hashem. And we should be Zoicha, as it says, we should do what we can to bring Mashiach Tzidkenu Teka from Miyad Mamish Amen, the Kodev Mamish Amen.